Thank you for coming along with us. Today, our featured guest is Stardust Unicorn, and she is an intentional creativity guide and teacher. Today, we discuss the magical potion of the red thread and intentional creativity. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Vicki Oleski. I'm the host of today's podcast, Live into 5D, Waking Up Our Nature, and we have an amazing guest. Thank you, Stardust Unicorn.
You're so very welcome.
We were really kind of hitting some great topics that were uplifting for us to talk about. And then I'm like, hey, wait a minute, let's record this. So I want to be, as transparent as like you and I've known each other for maybe about a year.
That's right.
We met through intentional creativity.
Yeah.
Center of our world.
That's absolutely right. Yes. Yes.
But Stardust, let's get right into, you were starting to tell me about the magical childhood that you had.
Yes. I had a very unusual childhood in that from the age of 2 to about 5, I was raised by my father's parents and that grandmother's parents as well. So grandparents and great-grandparents were raising me from 2 to 5, those super formative years. And they were Southern Baptist, but in the best way possible, like true Christians living, wanting to emulate Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with that. And my grandmother and her father were in particular formative for me in that her father, my great grandpa Johnson, who lived until I was 13, so I was very fortunate to have him for as long as I did. He was like the embodiment of kindness and goodness, and I was undiagnosed ADHD, hyper child who had a million whys, and he always had an answer to every why I had. And so I lived in this really idyllic environment on a walnut ranch in Modesto, running down to the canal and dust on my feet, or when my grandpa would irrigate, I'd go around with him on the tractor and we'd let the water go really early in the morning. And so I had a very wholesome, Jesus loves the children, all the little children of the world, like Disneyland, it's a small world, right? So these are all the ideas that I'm growing up with, that, these formative years. And then on the other side of that, I have my mother's mother, who I lived with her and my mother's siblings for a number of years as well after. And that family was in Montecito, California, affluent. However, my mom didn't take their money. She worked at the welfare department. And but my grandmother owned a theater. So in our home were people of every color, shape, sexual persuasion. It was just the whole gamut. So I had this exposure to very inclusive, liberal, multiracial people in my family. And then this super, everybody, Jesus loves everybody, and I love Jesus, that kind of thing, which gave me this incredible equity when I think about the world. We are all born from love. I don't consider myself Christian. I consider myself agnostic. But I believe that we are all one, and we are all part of this amazing experience of a soul living in a body, and who do I want to be and how do I want to be in the world, for myself and others. And I've just never understood racism, sexism, homophobia, uh, otherness, xenophobia, just all of that just doesn't make sense to me. Um, and throughout my life, I have just sort of been baffled and said, why can't you just be nice? Why can't you just be kind? Why is that so difficult? And on one side, it was beautiful because I had a very idealistic, loving way, but it also left me sort of unprepared for the real world.
Mhm.
But I've been a unicorn since the beginning. Like, even in kindergarten, they knew that I was one of these things is not like the others. And it was rough for a very long time.
Right.
But I never wanted to be like everybody else. That wasn't it. It was just, I think I'm having fun and an awesome, fun person. Why don't you think so? It just didn't even,
Or even better yet, you don't think so?
right? You don't think so? Exactly. What's wrong with you? So that really has been like my life is, why can't we just be kind to each other? Why is that difficult? And I also am one of the people that from a very young age, I would say as early as 12, when I was on public transportation, um, strangers tell me their darkest, deepest woes.
Mhm.
And I looked quite mature for 12. But all along, strangers, anybody just has immediately sensed that I'm somebody that they can disclose, be vulnerable with. And that's absolutely in line with my soul work, which I've discovered through intentional creativity. I'm currently working on my fourth certification. Um, and my soul work is the Stardust Unicorn Sanctuary. And the Stardust Unicorn Sanctuary is not only here in my uh, musea studio away from the mothership. It is a webcast for inner unicorns and wild things of all ages. It's going to be an intentional creativity webcast. It's going to be in the style of, my hero, Mr. Rogers, and um, Pee Wee Herman, and fun like that. It's just wholesome and a place where people can know that when they're in my sanctuary, and I consider myself also a sanctuary. It's like I'm a living sanctuary, but also my space, that anybody's in my space, they're going to be safe. They are going to be able to be vulnerable and not shamed and not judged. And because there is no other way for me to be. And I think that people in this world need to know that there are places and people who are immediately inclusive.
Yeah.
And my horn. Um, so that the Stardust Unicorn Sanctuary is I'm working towards it. I'm currently working on a book of the Stardust Unicorn Sanctuary in the class that you and I are actually in, Animistica, which is the fourth certification I'll be getting. This will be um, Animistica, Cura of Intentional Creativity. I also hold Color of Woman Teacher of Intentional Creativity, Red Thread Guide Training, and Origins Guardian Training certification. I am a guardian of unicorns and all wild things. And so that book is going to be sort of the preface to the show. And in that book, I am going to be including how to survive as a unicorn. and the things that are good about it and the things that are challenging about it, and how I, throughout my life, um, have managed being one of these things is not like the others. And I'm really excited about it,
That's,
because that just came together in this class that we're in now. So,
yeah. That, like you said, like a whole lot there, but I want to just slow things down a little bit. And number one, talk about, just briefly, let the listeners know. Um, and then I want to touch on this whole idea of the magic of animating the unicorn magic,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
That is so dear to me. And I
Mhm.
don't even think that you and I have actually really talked about it. But, I'm like, look, a real unicorn,
Yeah.
which is really the embodiment of magic. And you were speaking so much to that earlier about how you were raised to believe in what truth is about.
Yeah.
And so, when I had a similar, not that I was in walnut orchards, but, you know, I had a similar type of understanding and experience about the natural world, especially when holiday would happen. I was told that the animals talked. So I would Christmas Eve, I would go out and talk to the animals and the stars.
So
Uh,
wonderful.
yeah, and like make me a channel of your peace
Yeah.
was and still is my mantra.
Yes.
For folks who are listening, and I have a number of uh, folks who listen who stay in touch with me about like they feel the magic, but they don't know how to hold on to it.
Right.
And I think intentional creativity is a great model that you and I can talk about with each other to the listeners. Will you give us a little bit of like how does intentional creativity support your magic, support you continuing to trust into something bigger than you?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Um, Let me start with saying that my first ever intentional creativity experience was in San Gregorio, the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. My best friend from my late teens, she had become an intentional creativity teacher and invited me to come to her home, where she had a weekend workshop. I had no idea what intentional creativity was. I just knew that Jane was putting on a painting workshop and I was going to go.
I love that.
And right, it's just like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing. I'm just going. And so little did I know that my entire life's path was about to be profoundly and beautifully altered. Um, I'm just getting chills thinking about it. So at the beginning, we opened with what in this intentional creativity community, the red thread circle.
Mhm.
I'm like, what's a red thread circle? So I'm sitting there and Jane starts and she's holding this red ball of thread. And she said, we're going to go around the group and say what we're present to and just how you're feeling, or maybe what your intention is for being here. And she told me a little bit that it was a healing thing. So I'm like, okay. I said, well, I'm here to heal trauma. Um, I have been in weekly talk therapy for almost a decade with an amazing Gestalt therapist. Fantastic. We've up, down, and around and all the stuff, and to the point where you're circling back around to stuff that you talked about 10 years ago, right? So it's that spiral. But there was always it always felt like the trauma still lived in me, even though I'd learned how to deal with it and lots of tools and breathing anchoring and senses. But
Yeah.
I just thought that that just never would go away. Right. And as soon as I like was doing the thing, I'm here to heal trauma. And so it goes around and everybody's connected in the circle. And then Jane's telling us the legends of the red thread, you know, that there's 4 legends. It's you're already connected. You are called to this circle. We are here to witness each other. And the huge one, in particular for women, you're only responsible for your piece of the red thread.
Yeah.
And when she said that, I'm like, whoa, like, don't send energy to another person, just hold space, allow them to talk about what they're going through and answer their own riddle rather than, oh, I'm going to send you energy, or let me help you, let me save you, let me fix you. It was simply just be with your stuff and figure out what that is. What is your piece of the red thread? And that's all you're responsible for, which was incredibly liberating, right? Especially for women, we're always taking care of everybody. And like, whoa, oh, not me. I'll spend a gift card on something you need. Like just yeah, give. And I thought that that's what I needed to do. But through that weekend, I mean, I was hand painting just the first, and it's put a color on the canvas that represents you and a color that represents your trauma. Now we're going to wrap your trauma in light. And just through the whole, every step, I was like, wow. And I'm looking at Jane, and she was teaching with a partner at the time. And I was like, I want to teach intentional creativity with Jane. First day I've ever done it, right? And then from there, COVID happened. And Jane started an online only uh, intentional creativity painting group where for 3 months we would paint, like we started with some goddesses from the Sophia Code. Like we painted Green Terra, and then we painted a white buffalo calf woman and Kuan Yin and Isis and Seal woman. But throughout that process, each time we were doing a painting, there was the intention of healing trauma. And what I neglected to say, which is ridiculous, is that at the end of that weekend, I was stunned. I was stunned because what talk therapy hadn't been able to do was physically move that trauma energy from my body out of it. And by the paint and the paintbrush and the intention of I'm moving trauma out my arm into physicality in a painting. And there it is, my trauma on a painting. And it's this woman coming up through the waves. I called it up from the depths. And it was like, my trauma was freaking healed so dramatically from a weekend that the combination of all the work I'd done with therapy and that just were so beautiful in their marriage that I realized that all I want to do for the rest of my life is study intentional creativity and share intentional creativity and paint paintings and this whole thing. I'd studied as an actress, right? Or actor. Now we're saying actor. I studied as an actor. That was my one refuge during my whole life. That grandmother who had a theater, she saw that I was struggling and took me to auditions, and I had a natural aptitude for it. So even though the rest of my life I always felt a really low self-esteem and the otherness, in acting, I felt 100% confident. And I know a lot of people have stage fright and everything. I didn't have that. So that really helped me excel in it. So I always thought I'm going to be an actor, right?
Right.
Went to New York, studied acting, moved to Hollywood, studied acting, tried to be in the movies, and actually I was a founding member of the Jewel Box Theater in Hollywood. But I never had passion like that for anything else until intentional creativity.
The
And
thing
then it was
that,
like, wow.
yeah, the thing that you're describing, because the listener and for those who are like on the precipice of really taking some action
Yes.
and knowing that there's been a overlay of psychologizing our trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a lot of ways that has been super helpful
Yes.
to learn words and language.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that partly that has been overworked in our bodies.
Yes.
And what you were describing through talking about the red thread, cure a circle, and how it moved into intentional creativity is really what I want to just slow down and go, that's it. It's it's moving, using the body as a almost escape route for that energy
Yes.
that got misused as a different resource that was traumatized,
Yes.
you know. And
Yes.
because the things that we study and we know about, we knew as a kid, but then, then things happened,
Yes.
is that intentional creativity is a way to rewrite a wrong
Yes.
and to restore our amazing experiences to have them become deep, deep resources
Yes.
for ourselves, number one, and then also, pardon me for this, for those who we serve,
Yes.
including our partners, our family, our
Yeah.
community, and out. And certainly, just to go a little farther here with intentional creativity, it's an international intentional creativity community.
Yes.
Boom.
Yeah.
So that wave is like big.
Yes.
And you just spoke so much, so eloquently, Stardust, about, like moving, like when you were in that classroom doing the red thread, and then you realized, like, I've done talk therapy. I work with clients, and my work is called embodied spirit work. And it is really through the body that we get to release things.
Yeah.
Can you tell us just a little nugget on maybe a experience that you have had that you were unsure about, but you took what you were present to
Mhm.
and you brought it to the canvas?
I absolutely can.
Yeah, please do.
Um, the one of the things I love about intentional creativity is you don't have to keep revisiting your trauma, right? It's only what's ready to move at that moment and that is good for you, which is so great because so many modalities make you go back and back and back and back. But what really was huge for me was this January, um, one of our kitties passed. And I had a canvas with origins painting that we were working on. And
Mhm.
Shiloh has always said, in the darkest of times, drag yourself to the canvas. Whatever you can do to get yourself to the canvas at that moment when you're least likely to go to the canvas because you're suffering, then that's the time to do it. And so it was, we were really suffering here. My partner Martin and our other kitty Babu. And I thought about what Shiloh had said, and I went to my canvas, and it was when we were doing a beautiful garden, flowers and all those flowers. And I put my tears on the canvas. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do what this step of this painting is. And I was doing it. And as I was doing it, I was crying, but also it's that joy, the joy of painting, of expressing, of getting that energy out. It really hit home for me how we're, suffering is inevitable, right? We're all going to suffer. But to have a tool that can pull you through, or that is like a thread, like the red thread that is woven through the life, if it's sorrow, you still can weave this joyous connection with the oneness that is, right? And so I was crying and joyful, sorrowful and joyful, holding them together, as two together at the same time. And it was so clear to me how right Shiloh was in get to the canvas, because you can give yourself this gift of energy movement, of processing pain, like even prayer dots for the kitty, just a physical mark, a representation that has come from your field of energy and becomes a physical artifact of what you've been processing and feeling in that experience. That is what I would tell people. If I could only say one thing, is that with the tool of intentional creativity, you will have a tool that can bring you joy even in the darkest moments. And it's not supplanting the joy, it's that they are together.
Mm-hmm.
They are like what and the same, like, and so that is what really, that was the deepest sorrow I'd felt in the intentional, since I've been doing intentional creativity. It'll be 5 years next month. And this was in January of this year, when it was like, wow, we can weave this beautiful self-expression that heals trauma even while you're in it. And you can pull yourself through your whole life with this beautiful, incredible tool of yourself and your own creativity. Like, be your own healer. So that's
Exactly.
what I'm here to do, is to teach people that they can be their own healer, that they have that ability. And I'm not saying that necessarily like ills will be healed. It's different. You can be healed and still suffer and die from anything, right? And healed at the same time. So your soul is healed. You've managed to integrate through, for me, integrate through intentional creativity. I had two very disparate sides. One was really dark and sad, and one was the unicorn, right? So I was able to learn how to weave those together. It's weaving your body and spirit together so that your soul can express itself in its most full, self-actualized way. So
Yeah.
that is a specific. I know I go on a lot with the ADHD chatterbox, so that is a specific one.
Yeah, that was so great. It was so perfect. What I want to also contribute to this is that, for folks who suffer, I understand that. I empathize with it. It can really be debilitating to get up. For me, being a post-migraine sufferer for way too many years, but to just get up and run a bath for myself, or, get a blah, 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 if my friends aren't going to come over or whatever. And when we're going through grief, it can get a hold of us. And to allow, giving ourselves, I think, to grow into taking an action, to grow into doing something that will make us feel better, because the feel conditions in our culture kind of want to, like, not have you be empowered.
Want to froth you up, make you upset.
Yeah, like, see, and this program isn't really about against, we're all about creating. And in that place of feeling deep grief, physical pain, emotional pain, mental anguish, whatever we're dealing with, we can grow our internal resources enough to begin to rewrite a different story, to begin to take a bath, to begin, right?
Yes.
And in that moment, what I'm really noticing for myself that I'm learning through intentional creativity and the red thread is the sense of witnessing ourselves, is to grow that presence of, look at what my circumstances are, look at what story I'm writing, look, I'm going to intentionally take an action.
Yeah.
And intentional creativity, really has a subtle ability to begin to grow our stories in a different way.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Before we finish up, Stardust, I want you to just talk a little bit to the listener and myself about this course called Animistica.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Like,
Absolutely.
we're in the second month of it, and I'm just exuberant over this next 4 or 5 months.
Yes.
But I wanted to hear from you, because I know that Stardust Unicorn, is it webcam?
Oh, it's going to be a web series.
A web series.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that's going to be part of what you're going to be writing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
share with us a little bit about your ideas and what you're dreaming up.
Of course. The one of the things I wanted to say about intentional creativity is I love that it is not a religion in any sense of the word. It can be layered on top of any religion, which is that goes back to my inclusivity of, it's been specifically designed by Shiloh Sophia, our teacher, mentor, friend, beloved, in such a way that she has intended for it to be usable by every human on this planet. And so for me, with the animistica, so there's the animism, which, our far back ancestors, everything was alive, right? And everything had spirit, and you thanked it. And we've moved so far away from that. But I feel like my whole life I was animistic. In as much as communicating with hugging trees. And I lay down once on the earth in the Mojave Desert and hugged the planet. Just gave her a big old hug. And so that aspect for me is very natural.
Mm-hmm.
And the just bringing it even more to the forefront of, if I can take a spider outside, which I wish I could, I would take a spider outside. I always would, but this is more of a, wow, this is another being that's just trying to be alive, because it's so preposterous that we're here, right? It really, really is. If you think about it, it is just
It's
preposterous.
wild. It is
Wild.
so
Yes.
wild, right? I'm
Yes.
like, we live on a planet and our star is the sun
Yeah.
and we're in constant motion.
Yeah.
Like, it's a
Yeah.
wow. I
It
hear
is.
you.
It is. So just even being alive in it of itself, my Martin and I say to each other every day, I'm so grateful for another day with you. And it's just so preposterous that we're here. And so for Animistica, it's really built upon what I've been doing. Obviously, there's that, but I never knew quite how I was going to convey it, other than through the Stardust Unicorn Sanctuary, through the sort of like a television program ideas, but I didn't know how to write about it. And then the other day, after we did this big latest stage, I wrote 4 pages in my
Mhm.
journal, just wrote 4 pages, and I was like, whoa, there's the first 4 pages of the book. And it was like about, you know, before I was the am that I am, I was thinking about what would I like to come onto the planet and be. And I could think of no greater thing than to be a stardust unicorn. And then I say about how wonderful it is to be a unicorn and the things you get by being a unicorn. But there's also challenges with being a unicorn, because there are people out there that are going to not like you for exactly the reasons that you love being a unicorn, right? And how to move through that. And so that's what the book is going to be about. It's going to be a children's book, but a children's book that's accessible to all of the unicorns and wild things, because we all have them, right?
I
So bringing that experience to the book, and then then the series will build upon that.
beautiful. I really hear how it's going to be. Your book is going to speak to our inner child.
Yeah.
Uh, like, so it's going to be a children's book, and it's going
Yes.
to be able to draw that magical and a mystical.
Yes.
So the part that uh animizing our
Mhm.
mystical, our mystic selves.
Right.
That's how I'm hearing that.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. A unicorn.
Can't wait. I cannot wait. And you and I will be, you and I, as well as like 60 some other people,
Mhm.
are moving forward together and supporting each other. Oh my God, what about that?
This community is unreal. It is so
Right?
amazing to be able to be in a group, um, supporting each other, being transparent with each other. There's no one is pulling anybody down. It's, I am here and I am celebrated because of my unicorniness, right? And to be like, whoa, they really do like this. Well, I thought they would.
Yes.
To me, it's like, wow. And so the community in and of itself, I had been in the Burning Man community for a long time. I went 4 years in a row, 98 through 2001. And that was the closest community I'd ever had as an adult. Like as an adult, you're like, so wow, it was an amazing community. However, I moved away, we lost touch. We're friends on Facebook and everything, but it's not like we're all getting together, or at least I'm here where I am here in Portlandia. And this community has given me what I missed so much about the Burning Man community, and so much more.
Yeah.
So much more. The support, the as safe as you can be, right? In a group,
Yeah.
vulnerable,
And you don't
support.
have to
Yeah,
drive to the desert
right.
and ruin your newest sprinter or
Right,
whatever.
right,
Um,
right. Yeah.
the thing that I find, like, again, you're talking about Stardust, is that this, uh, when people and when we say community, the stuff that you're talking about is really about creativity. And in some circles and in some communities, that is very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And there is absolutely, I don't feel or find any of that here. And
Mm-mm.
every one of us, like, we're all seen in our glory, in
Yeah,
our, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, not like bumps and warts and all that, but there is an agreement, some of it's spoken, but most of it is unspoken, that we're building this is a culture of acceptance,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and witnessing.
that's right.
And because it's a culture of creation,
Mm-hmm.
like, there's not like, oh no, that doesn't belong.
Mm-mm. No way.
No.
Yeah, right.
Like,
And
every mark is valuable.
that's right. That's right. And the fact that Shiloh has formed this community founded on may love be at the center of all choices.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, this is a group of people that want to live with love at the center of their choices. Those sound like nice people I want to hang out with.
I know, right? I want to thank you, and let's end it there, because I love knowing that I feel that constantly, that love is at the center. And so thank you so much, Stardust.
Absolutely.
Ashley, Merritt, Unicorn. Just fabulous to get to know you, work with you in the community. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been a thrill, and I love you to pieces, and I can't wait to see where we go with all of this. So,
Yay!
I love you so much.
You too.